All right. It's Monday, and we are back on the show with my husband Peter today because we're going to tell you guys the story about our business, basically. I know everyone sees our life that we have today and the businesses that we have and the success, and it's really easy to be like, oh, they must just have always had that, or they must have come from that. But I'm here to tell you guys that we did not grow up anything close to this, and I kind of wanted to bring you in on the story because you guys know our marriage story and you know everything that we've been through that way, but you don't really know the story of us as like business owners and people that grew up in extreme religion and some weird things that have basically built ourselves.
Totally. Growing up, being kind of lost in the shuffle in a big family.
Yeah.
We're both from big families.
Totally.
We were calculating last night. We have 56 nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
And counting. And big families on both sides. A lot of big ideas. A lot of, okay, you have to go get a job, go work for the man for 40 years.
Yeah.
And different ideas about money and business and what success looked like.
Yeah.
That were imprinted on our souls from a very early age.
And we wanted to share this with you guys because we wanted to teach you the lessons and like things we would do over again. If we were starting over, what would we do over again? And so that there's obviously like value for you guys and let you in on like basically the lessons we've learned, and then I don't know, just that side of us, I guess.
By the way, thanks for having me back, baby.
You know I love it when you're on the show. So, little did you guys know, actually I think we said this before, but Peter's one of 11 kids and I'm one of 9. And so we both grew up in ginormous families, and both of our families were involved in religious groups that were
very extreme.
Yeah, on the extreme side. So I've said this before, how I went like door-to-door witnessing before, and
me too.
No dating, like definitely no alcohol. Like no, you grew up with like no meat and all of that too. Peter grew up vegan. I don't know if everybody knows this, but he grew up totally vegan.
So I was 21.
Yeah, on like a vegan farm, which is a whole other topic.
We were bolder before it was cool.
Yeah, you were bolder before it was cool. So tell them, did you grow up watching anybody in your family be an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh. So my dad had this vision. He always told us kids, I have this vision that all of my children are going to be medical missionaries. And that meant you became doctors. And so I'm number 10 of 11 kids. And 6 of my siblings went to medical school. 5 graduated and are full MDs. And everybody else still did something with their lives. One of them was like, well, you know what? I'm not going to be a doctor. I'll go get a PhD in physics at Stanford, or, different things like that. So everybody had to do something. You get an A or you don't exist in classes. There's a lot of shame-based stuff. So very, very little business acumen. My parents actually, they went to Harvard. A series of quote unquote rebellions in the 60s happened, and they ended up having this small farm in Idaho after a few years. And I joke with people, the only successful crop was children.
Yeah.
Because
everything else failed.
They ended up losing the farm in the late 80s. So very little business experience of any kind.
And then your dad didn't hold a job.
My dad had very sporadic work environment. My mom supported us financially a lot of the time. It was actually us kids, when we went to school, we took out max student loans and oftentimes contributed those to the family and different things like that. We were broke off our butts. I wore hand-me-down clothes from my sisters. Seriously. And so that we ended up losing the farm. We lived in this small 700, 800 square foot family housing unit, and 10 of us kids were still home.
Tell them, like, on average, what your family would bring in a year.
Like, our annual income was probably 10 grand for years.
For 11 kids.
Yeah.
And 2 parents.
I don't know the exact number, but yeah. I remember like Christmas time, my mom would wait until the Christmas trees were on sale the night before Christmas for $1, maybe. And so maybe we would get a Christmas tree and we'd decorate it Christmas Eve because it was $1.
How much is that a month? My brain just totally went to like what kind of a budget is that?
Like $1,000 a month, maybe.
I'm like, I cannot even fathom living
This
on
was 30,
$2,000
this was
with
30, 40,
11 kids.
this was 30, 40 years ago. And we had a gigantic farm and we ate a lot of our own produce and we were our own successful customers.
I grew up, my dad was a pastor, which means he was not like a pastor of a mega church. So like, we're not rolling in the dough. It was more like that was his calling and his way of serving God. And so we did not make, I can't even like venture a guess because I'm not good at numbers. You could probably venture a guess at what you thought my family made, but there were 9 kids in my family and we only got like necessities. My parents did a great job at making us feel like we weren't missing out because they were awesome at like building us doll houses and sewing us doll clothes for Christmas and things like that, right?
And refinishing furniture and knowing how to make things stretch. Your mom is an expert at that.
Yeah, she is. But I knew that if we went into a store, I wasn't allowed to ask for things. Like it was like a conversation before we ever went into a store. Like, don't ask for anything because you're not getting it. And I could not ask for extra clothes. Like we got what we exactly needed for that year. And that lasted us a whole year. And then we got to go. So I started buying my own stuff at 14. I started working when I was 12 and started buying my own clothes and everything when I was 14. So I think we both grew up really being driven for money because we didn't have it.
Yeah, my first 3 jobs, I was making $5.15 an hour. I got a whopping raise to $5.25. And for those first 5 years of my life, and then it was $10 an hour.
Wait. What were you doing making $5 an hour?
$5.15 an hour.
Yeah, what were you doing?
I was a swim instructor at 15.
My first job was when I was 12, and I made $5 a piano lesson. I did piano lessons. Well, I did babysitting too, right? And that was $5 an hour too. So there you go. I didn't realize we both had the same hourly rate.
Inflation, man. And for those first 5 years, I had to give all my paychecks to my parents to help support our family.
They literally confiscated them.
It was like, here's a paycheck. Here you go, Dad and Mom. Here's the measly $93 I earned this week or whatever.
What made you give it over?
I had to. There was no choice.
What would happen if you didn't?
I didn't have a bank account.
Oh my God. So you couldn't even cash the check?
No, it was a big deal when I was 20 and I went out and I financed my own car and I was like, it's over. No more giving money to the family. It was actually a gigantic issue between my dad and I moved out shortly thereafter.
That was your rebellion where you were like, I'm done basically being owned.
I drew a line in the sand and I was frustrated about some things. And at that point, I'd gotten an even better job. And this is back in the good old days, 2002, 2003, where you could do stated income and get pretty much whatever you wanted. So I started out working because I very quickly learned, hey, the Red Cross was paying me $10 an hour to do swim coaching and lifeguard coaching and all this stuff. I can go and make a direct deal with the pool. And instead of them making 70% of the income, now I'm making 40 or $50 an hour. So
you were an entrepreneur all along. It's just like in your blood, I feel like.
That was more of a devious side game where I was done. I was done getting limited. You know, you only get X amount of income. You only get this. But I looked over the fence and saw other people making most of the income, but I did pretty much all the work.
See, I think most people don't think like that.
Well, I just reached this point of frustration where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let my dad and mom take my money. I'm also, because I was giving it over, I needed to support the family, etc. But whatever. That's another story for another day.
Well, and here, that leads me to my first point for you guys. If you're not driving and you can write this down. Follow your frustration. I just read that in a book that I was reading the other day, Chasing the Bright Side by Jess Ekstrom, which I highly recommend. You should read it if you haven't. It's awesome. But she talks about how our frustration actually is what leads us usually to the white space that we need to create something that other people haven't created. So look for the frustration in your life right now as your road, your path to something even better. So many of us don't want to feel frustrated, so we just push it away and we're like, I don't want to feel that, or we try to avoid it. But frustration is actually your path to something better. For you, frustration caused you to make more money because it got you to think outside the box. So follow your frustration, don't push it away. But let's keep going and let's get into like, so you didn't grow up watching anybody be an entrepreneur. I for sure didn't. And I was pretty much told like, you won't be anything awesome. So like, and women especially were
maybe you
supposed
could
to
do
get
hair
married and have babies.
You could do hair or nails or some different things, maybe.
Yeah. But it was like, get married and have babies, and then you're just going to spend your life raising babies. So, yeah. So then what happened? You went to college.
I went to college, spent 4 years going through college. I worked at Olive Garden. I worked at Chop House. I worked 40 to 50 hours a week and was pre-med the whole time because I still was supposed to be going to medical school. So I did everything except take those last 2 or 3 classes and then take my MCAT. It wasn't me. I kept trying to force it, and it just wasn't me. But I learned very early on, like, picture this. My first experience at a restaurant was when I was 18. I didn't know how to order from a menu.
You had literally never been to any restaurant ever.
Zero. Yeah. No restaurant ever. Not once. I'm not even talking drive-through or, Taco Bell, nothing. My first restaurant was when I was 18, and we went to Olive Garden. I was working for this moving company at the time. Busted my butt for 6 hours. I was hungry as a horse, and they showed up with this huge bowl of salad and breadsticks and soup because I didn't know how to order for myself.
And you were like, you mean I can eat all I want?
No, hang on. I ate it all up, and they were like, do you want more? There's more? How much do I have to pay for it? Nothing. It's included. I'm like, I just hit the jackpot. I must have eaten like 6 bowls of salad or something. Like it was bad. It was bad.
If you guys haven't seen Peter eat, it's like it's a thing people talk about because growing up, he was only allowed to have 2 meals a day and no snacks. So they ate breakfast at 7, they ate lunch at noon, and then they didn't eat again until the next day at 7.
Ship sailed at 1 o'clock, and if you did not get on that train or that boat, you are toast.
So he learned to eat great quantities at a young age, and he still eats a lot in one sitting. But when you were like 18 and growing and like helping someone move,
I just for a moving company. I just busted my butt.
6 bowls of salad.
Oh,
and then how many bowls of pasta?
No, that wasn't possible. So that was just
salad and breadsticks.
Salad, breadsticks, and soup, and it was like 3 bowls of soup and 6. I mean, it was epic.
Okay.
It was epic.
All right.
Anyways,
we're getting off on a tangent. Let's keep moving.
So I worked as a waiter. I almost got fired those first couple of days because I'd rarely been to a restaurant, so I didn't know what to expect.
Oh, true.
So then when I was 20, I got a job working as a waiter because that was the thing you did. If you want to make more than $10 an hour, you go work as a server. And so I went and did that. And I'm trying to memorize this menu. Oh my gosh, I felt like a bumbling idiot at those first few tables. It was a lunch rush. I just botched the orders, and it was complete epic failure. And I almost got fired that day. It was bad. But then I learned that in order to survive, there's some failure that has to happen. There's some, and I'll come back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But there's some epic failures that you have to encounter. And you either run away from those and say, I'm done, it's over, and that's the failure that takes you out, or that's going to be a failure that teaches you to get to the next level. And so that failure was, you know what? I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to be great at this.
Ooh, you had a moment. I think everyone has these pivotal moments. And sometimes, well, I know for entrepreneurs, you have multiple.
Yeah.
And I call it like your pivotal moment because it's literally where you have a choice to go one way or the other.
And I saw these after a few weeks of watching. I saw think of 40 servers working at once. We're the 3rd busiest Olive Garden in the nation at the time. And
no wonder you almost got fired.
Yeah, it was bad. I saw all these people standing around, waiting around, and usually complaining. They would sit there and tell stories about their customers and complaining. But I realized, ding, 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 light bulb moment, if I spend time with my clients, customers, whatever, and I learn how to read them and I learn how to interact with them, I'll make more money.
How did you know to think that way? Because I think most people don't even think that way.
Because I saw, hey, these people are complaining, but that's not actually going to make anything change.
Very objective. You had like a very objective mind.
Because you're going to be able to show up to your clients, which is the 3 to 5 tables that they entrusted you with, either, hey, I'm showing up with a terrible attitude. Here's your food. Oh, really? You want a refill? Come on now. I mean, type attitude. Or, you know what? I'm going to bust my butt. The day's going to go a lot faster, and I'm going to work harder. And guess what? Instead of them giving me $3 to $5, I'll get $10 or 20 or 50.
I think you were so motivated by money and by results that it allowed you to look for any potential way to get better.
Absolutely.
And that's another tip for people. Instead of seeing the problem, see the opportunity. How to get better.
Yeah.
How to get better. How is this a chance for me?
If you get stuck sitting there thinking about the problem and talking to other people that are at your level about the problem, that becomes complaining and you get stuck in this endless loop. Versus if there's a way to actually make change, there's this movie quote that goes, instead of griping sideways, I'm going to gripe up. It's actually in Saving Private Ryan. It's a pretty cool exchange between the soldiers marching around trying to save Private Ryan.
Yeah. And
they're all complaining. And they ask their commanding officer, why aren't you complaining? And he says, well, I'm not going to complain to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to complain up. And so I saw that as an opportunity. Why sit around complaining? And instead, I'm going to, if there is something that needs to happen, I'll talk to my manager. Otherwise, I'm going to take care of these clients and kill it.
Okay, so that was a moment for me in network marketing last year that I've already talked about on the podcast, where I had this moment of deciding, you know what, instead of complaining, I'm going to point the finger at myself. And that changed everything in my
100%
business.
responsibility.
100% responsibility. It's radical responsibility, even though it might not be your fault. Even though you probably could point the finger. That was the pivotal moment for me in my business. And I would say that's also a tip for entrepreneurs listening in, is where you're not taking 100% responsibility and pointing the finger at yourself. It's so easy to complain. And if you're surrounded by other people that complain, be careful. Like, pick a different tribe. And I ended up having to distance myself from some people because I was like, you know what? They're spending their energy complaining. I only have so much energy and I only have so much time a day. So I better spend it doing something productive.
Why sabotage 90% of that?
Yeah.
Shooting your own paycheck.
What you focus on, you find. Like, what you talk about expands. And I was like, if I'm going to keep talking about complaining, I'm just going to keep finding more things to complain about. Like, let's find some good things.
Yeah.
So you worked in the restaurant business, and then eventually I know you got into this business that you have today, one of them, with your brother.
Yeah. So my oldest brother, this is a long story. It's really good over cocktails, but my oldest brother.
So grab a cocktail if it's that time of day.
There you go. My oldest brother actually came to visit me in Tennessee. I'd been working in the restaurant business for 2 years. I was just getting ready to finish up college. There was some stuff that was going on in my life that was really frustrating, and it was actually really awesome to see him and visit him. And for several months then, I was by far the highest wage earning server, like of anybody.
You did say you were going to be the best.
I was on a lunch shift. Most people would walk with 30 to 50 bucks. Mm-hmm. I'm walking with 100 to 130.
Ooh.
And when people would get cut, instead of being one of those first few people that would get cut, I'd be like, you know what? I want to work all the way. Because once they cut the whole restaurant, there was this late afternoon rush that would come in at 2 or 3, and I'd have 10 tables. And I'd sling it all. It was magic, and I'd make another $100 or whatever.
Yep. So you were willing to go the extra mile.
I was absolutely willing to go the extra mile. But my brother gave me probably the best advice I'd received in my life up until that point. He said, because he was asking me about my life, asking me about where I was at. I was frustrated. But I mean, hey, as a 22-year-old college kid, I'm making $50,000 a year.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Going through private school, paying my way through everything. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a dime that anybody else paid for me. I paid everything for myself.
Right.
And I'm going through planning on going to med school, but not not totally sold on that idea and I'm frustrated. Well, he told me, if you're the top at what you're doing currently, that means that you're not in the right game.
Ooh.
So I was blowing it out of the water as a server.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you mastered that art, but that means that now you need to move up. It's like, if I'm champion of T-ball, I need to move up to the minor leagues or the major, or, I need to move forward. I can't just keep playing Pop Warner football or whatever. I need to go shoot for the NFL.
Get a bigger pond.
So that was the biggest, and like, that was such a huge light bulb moment for me. I worked probably another 2 weeks and I was done and I moved away. Wow. And completely turned the corner. I went back to visit a few years later just because business brought me back to that part of Tennessee, just to shoot the breeze with a couple of people. But I was literally done at that point, and I turned the corner because I knew I needed a bigger pond. I didn't want to get stuck in first gear the rest of my life. I wanted to be able to look forward. So fast forward a couple months, I had an opportunity to work with another one of my brothers in the electronic payments world. My first paycheck for the month was $12.
Well, you got to explain that a little bit. You were strictly commission based because it was your own business. He basically gave you your own business. But not gave it to you, but was like, hey, if you want to work with me, I'll teach you what I'm doing and you can build your own business, was basically what it was.
That is, you go to training and then you can epically fail, and I'll maybe be there for you if and when you need me.
100%.
At that point in time, his business, he wasn't really in the electronic payments business. He was doing other stuff. And so I kind of got to pioneer some different things.
But the way it worked was you needed to sign clients up for your services.
Yeah. And so
even when you signed them up for your services, the paycheck didn't kick in for a couple months.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would work my butt off, work several hours, get somebody set up, and then I'd start getting paid 3 months later. And literally that first month, I worked 40 hours a week. 100 hours a week for the whole month, and it was $12.
Yeah.
And
what did you think when that happened?
That was a gut punch. That was a real big gut punch.
Did it make you question what you were doing?
Totally. Absolutely. And the no's and the rejection, because I was so used to being the hero. I would waltz up to a table, and in 10 seconds, I knew exactly what to say and how to say it and how to engage and take on. Half the time, people are laughing and busting a gut, and I'm pulling all these pranks on people and different things. It was like, it was fun. It was play. And suddenly this is work and it's hard. And I'm getting
no, and you're like, I shouldn't be hearing no.
I'm getting no and rejection. And now it's like I'm fumbling over the menu all over again.
Yeah.
And
that is the hardest part for an entrepreneur. And it's what your brother said. So take note, you guys. Entrepreneurs constantly reach this point where they're at the top, but in order to get to the next level, you have to start over again. Mm-hmm. And the thing that separates great entrepreneurs from good entrepreneurs is that great entrepreneurs are willing to suck again at the bottom. But the more success you have, the harder it is to start over and be a beginner again.
Yeah.
Because you're so used to being successful that you're like, wait, I have to be a beginner again. But it's literally the only way to get to those next levels. And so the people that stay in good aren't willing. They don't have the humility to suck again at the beginning. So you've got to be willing to suck over and over again and be at the bottom over and over again.
Embrace the suck.
Yeah. That's another takeaway for you guys.
And I'd add to that, back to being in a big pond, it gets comfortable. Yeah. And complacency is the enemy of progress. I think that's a pretty powerful quote. Don't know where it's from, but it's resonating in my mind. Not mine. But complacency is literally the enemy of your progress.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really critical to say at this point in time, if you want to get where you really, really, really want to go, and you feel stuck and restless and whatever, but whatever you're doing is comfortable, trying to pivot and do something else is going to be so hard at the onset.
Because it's going to be so uncomfortable.
Because it's going to be so uncomfortable, but then the reward is going to be so much greater.
Kind of like why we hired a marriage coach right now.
Yeah.
Which will be a whole other podcast episode coming up. Because we're definitely in the uncomfortable part.
Oh my gosh. So that's where, I knew how to work hard, and I needed to learn after a while how to work smart. So I was doing a lot of I literally knew everything about the electronic payments world after 2 years.
You definitely learned trial by fire.
Oh yeah. Trial by fire.
So wait, go back. Your first paycheck was $12. What about your second month?
It was $120.
Your third month?
It was $490.
Fourth month?
Over $1,000.
Fifth month?
It was almost $2,000.
Awesome.
And it kept going, and I've never looked back.
And that's where the faith comes in, you guys. Remember we talked about this a couple episodes back on preparing your fields for rain? And your business in particular, it's all about planting seeds and then having to hold the vision and have the faith that it's coming. Like, you can't see the harvest, but you're going to get your field ready for rain, believing that it's coming.
Yeah.
And that is the journey of entrepreneurship. It's, are you willing to keep putting in 100 hours when you're getting a $12 paycheck or a $100 paycheck? Because if you just keep going, pretty soon the water's going to start gushing, like Darren Hardy says, with pumping. And you're pumping the well and you're getting nothing. You're pumping.
Now looking back, I know now about my industry. The average length of time someone's in my business is 6 months.
Crazy. Because
they start off working with a company and they start aligning with a company, and either the values and the integrity aren't there, or they're, for whatever reason, they wash out and it's not there. This is another important takeaway for me. You have to stay the course. And only those people who actually, I'm going to use a football analogy here, you don't get points going 70, 80 yards. You get points when you actually get in the end zone.
That's right.
And so many people spend so much time with their business marching down the field, and then you quit literally right before you scored points. The money round is the last 30% of what you're doing. The first 70%, you get so little financial compensation. And then once you actually punch it in and you make it happen, and then you get to deposit the check and celebrate. But before that, all it is it's a slugfest marching down the field, and you don't have any points or very minimal points to show for it.
And that's the hardest part, because you'll have other people also wanting to say, well, look, it's not doing anything. Oh, look, are you sure you should be doing that? It's not only your own mental game going on, it's other people's too.
Wait, you were making $50,000 as a server.
Yeah.
And now you have to adjust your life. I'm a single guy, 22, 23, and I've got no income for 3 months.
Really quickly, I want to remind you guys, this is your invitation to join Instagram Mastery. That is my 6-month group coaching program where we take a deep dive into the world of Instagram and how to be getting the platform to work for you to bring you sales and leads. That's right. When you're using the platform correctly, you guys, it should be bringing the sales and the leads to you. You should not have to be going and finding all these people and doing all the work. It should flow. And this group of girls in my Instagram Mastery is on fire. They are going big places, and they all have different businesses. Some of them are network marketers. Some of them are coaches. We have all different kinds. It doesn't matter what your business is, because selling and marketing yourself and getting the platform to work for you is the same, regardless of what kind of business you have. So the beautiful part about it is you get my course, Instagram Elite, which is a huge 10-module deep dive into Instagram. But then every month there's a group coaching call with me where I'm doing updated trainings, laser coaching. And then every month you also get a one-on-one call with me where I can help you personally strategize your business for the month. That's right. I'm going to help you sit down every single month and say, what's your game plan for the month? How are you going to be generating leads? What are you using to convert those leads to sales? And I'm going to help walk you through the process, because my goal is to help 1,000 women start generating $5,000 to $10,000 a month from home in the next year. And I would love for that to be you, because that is literally why I'm here. I am here to help other women turn their lights on and start changing themselves from the inside out and stepping into their purpose and their power so that money can flow into their life and they can have a bigger impact. That is what I'm here for, you guys. I'm here to help you. So I would love for you to join us. Please send me a DM on Instagram at joyharrington.ig. We will chat and see if it's a good fit. It is not too late. Jump in. Having that reassurance for the next 6 months that you have a coach, you have a group for support, you have a plan for your business is amazing. The peace of mind and the confidence that comes when you have that causes you to show up differently online. And that's where the magic is. So come join the group. You do not want to miss out on this and say, man, I wish I would have in 6 months, right? Don't be that girl who's like, I wish I would have. Be the girl who's like, dang, I'm going to go for it. This is going to be amazing, or it's going to be the exact lesson I need. I will see you over on the gram. So by the time we met, I was 22. You were 24, almost 25.
Mm-hmm.
How much were you making at that point?
About $7,000 a month.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought when we got married, you were making 5.
Well, because I had bonuses too.
Oh, okay.
So I knew how, back to the working smarter and not harder thing. When I was working, I figured out how to make an extra $2 or $3 grand a month with the bonus structure by signing up a ton of small accounts.
Okay.
So I would max out the bonus structure, and then they changed it to be a volume thing because I had made them recreate the bonus structure 3 times. But anyways.
They were losing too much money on you. By the time we got married, I was 25, you were 27, you were making about $5 grand a month, and then maybe some bonuses.
5, 6, 7, somewhere in that range. So definitely under $100K a year.
Yeah. And when we got married, I stopped working because I moved to Idaho where you were living. And you were like, hey, I don't want you to work. I just want you to have fun time to yourself, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dang, okay, I'll be a stay-at-home
I'm going to rephrase that.
Go ahead.
I don't want you to have to work.
Yeah.
You get to do whatever you want. Because I also had this thought about me where it was this nobility complex.
Yep.
I want to be able to provide, and I want to be able to give awesome things for our family, and I want to be able to do all this awesomeness. Yep. I'm not there yet, but it's coming. It's, believe in it. And so it was definitely a scenario of I didn't want you to feel pressure that you had to. You'd been working as a Starbucks barista up until that point.
Oh my gosh.
And a nanny.
My background, real quick, to catch us up to speed, was I had gone to college for 1 year, hated it, dropped out, moved home, paid off all of my school loans in 1 year because I didn't have any help with that either. And worked a slew of odd jobs until we got married. So I worked at the bank for 7 months. And then I worked as an orthodontic assistant and a pediatric dental assistant. And then I worked at Starbucks and I worked as a nanny. I was one of those job hoppers because I would get tired of them after a while. They weren't like entertaining to me. And I always hated being tied to somebody else's schedule. Like there was something about not being able to decide my own schedule and say like, I actually want to take today off, or I want a weekend with my family, or whatever it was, or I want to go camping, right? That always bothered me, but I never ever thought I could be an entrepreneur. Like it never crossed my mind to work for myself.
Nope. You have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to go work the drive-thru.
I did. I was getting up at 3:30 sometimes for Starbucks. And I just remember thinking like, yeah, but soon I'll get married and I'll like be able to stay home and have kids. Like I'm not doing this forever. And so in my mind, it was okay to be like a job hopper because I wasn't going to do it forever. And
then I came along and said, honey, I don't really want you to have to work if you don't want to. And you said,
I was like, news to my ears. I was like, all right, I'll stay home and be the housewife.
And the pressure that first year, that was
terrible.
That was epic. That was rough.
So let's dive into that a little bit. We get married. I moved to Idaho. I don't know anybody. Peter still has his friends and his life, but I know no one. And now I'm not working. So I have no opportunity to meet anyone. And we lived not in downtown. We lived a little ways away.
And now I have to support a family.
Now you have to support a family.
It's all on me versus if I was a single guy and I messed it up this month. Well, you know what? There was plenty of times for months and months and months. I didn't run the heat in my house or my apartment. I just threw on an extra couple bundles and it's negative degrees outside. I'm like, I don't care because I'm a single guy.
Yeah.
Well, now we're married. Can't do that. I can't eat ramen I can't eat, like all these other things where I would mortgage the future of my health and mortgage other areas of my life, suddenly couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I didn't even really feel comfortable telling you the truth. Like,
correct.
We've got $5 in our bank account.
Correct.
And no, I can't take you out to eat tonight.
So it created this weird dynamic because you had all the money and because you didn't want to be totally forthcoming to me and let me see that like maybe you needed some help. It created this weird situation that I'm like, oh, hey, I want to go grocery shopping today. Can you give me money? And then you're like, no, we don't have money today.
Or you did, and it overdrafted us.
Or yeah,
or something.
I did, and it overdrafted or something. But anytime I wanted something, I was asking you for the money because I didn't have the bank account. I didn't have the money that was coming in. I didn't have access to it, really.
And the crazy thing about it is I'd get paid once a month.
Oh, I remember those days.
And we would have the 5-week months because it was like most months was 4 weeks, but some months every 4th or 5th month was a 5-week month.
Yep.
And so, honey, that same $5 or $6 grand, now surprise, we have to stretch it.
Yeah.
One more week.
So I remember so many times saying, like, we need some groceries. Can we go to the grocery store? And you were like, not yet. Not yet. And it'd be like a couple of days. Can we go now? Not yet. And they'd be like, okay, we got paid. Let's go grocery shopping.
And it created this cycle of we got paid. Woohoo! Celebrate.
Let's go have fun. And then at the end of the month, we're scraping by. And
does this sound familiar to anybody?
It sounds really unhealthy. So that's how we got started, you guys. You would never know that looking at our life now, huh?
And that was for a couple of years because then you worked as an assistant at a chiropractic office.
That was more because I wanted to be able to get adjusted. Like I didn't get a serious job.
A chiropractic adjustment.
Yeah, a chiropractic adjustment. I was really into chiropractic, and I still am.
And wellness, yeah, absolutely.
And wellness. And we found this awesome chiropractor, and he didn't have an assistant. So I asked him, like, hey, could I trade some work for like us getting free care? And he was like, yeah, and I'll pay you $10 an hour to like work here. I can't believe I worked for $10 an hour, and I was 25, 26, and I had been working way more qualified jobs, but I worked for $10 an hour for that for a while. Trading
services. And I wasn't physically healthy at the time. I was getting sick every few weeks because I was working 100 hours a week and not taking care of myself. I'd usually eat one meal a day, a gigantic meal at the end of the day, and then I would fall off a cliff and I'd crash. And it was a cycle, and it kept going and going.
And then we moved to Portland.
Yeah, about a year into our marriage, we moved to Portland, and our income very quickly took off.
Because you were working with a bank that was giving you a bunch of leads.
Yeah.
So that helped.
So my business changed. I was able to get more team members, and I kind of got stuck at this plateau. For the first 3 or 4 years, it was that learning plateau of work your butt off and you'll get more. And then I've got to do everything the hard way for some reason in my life. So I finally learned after a while of being discontent and unhappy and whatever. Why are you limiting yourself just with playing small ball? You've now reached this plateau. Let's go for the next level. And so I did that. And this was just organically. Another point that we wanted to make right about now is you need to do personal development, because I know in my life, I spent years and years and years and years having to learn things the hard way. And if I'd been reading a book or having a mentor, or I'd paid some money to have a coach or something like that, they would have saved us thousands and thousands of dollars and all this heartache and agony and
long hours working
and marriage fights and whatever else, just because.
Oh my gosh.
Guess what? So that's where a lot of times that's, again, we've heard this cliche before, penny wise, pound foolish.
Yep.
But a lot of times entrepreneurs are going to get stuck at that stage of, oh, I can't spend the money right now to go make that flyer. I have to work 37 hours myself. And now I made the flyer myself. Well, guess what? You just sabotaged the next month of income because you didn't want to pay $300.
Yeah.
Or something.
What mistakes did you choose to hold on to that might cost you thousands by not investing the money?
Yeah.
So, I mean, from that point on, you added a couple of platforms. I started my business after having both of our kids with network marketing.
2011 was our first 6-figure year.
Yeah, 2011 was our first 6-figure year. Isn't that crazy? And then you added on financial advising a few years ago, and it's just been
Mhm.
like slowly building on top of things.
Yeah.
And
And it kept improving. Like
yeah,
we kept every year we kept stacking more and more and more. Obviously some things came to light in 2015.
yep, we talked about that.
Our marriage hit the rocks. We had moved a couple of times through there.
Yep.
The idea that we would get stuck at a plateau and then we'd have to learn something, and then we get stuck at the next plateau and we'd have to learn something. Um, that that kind of kept happening, kept going on for the next few years. But that's where, learning to be able to do different things, whether it's personal development, whether it's getting a coach, whether it's having other team members that are more qualified to do certain things. Like I remember in so many areas of my life, and I'm still in the middle of this in my business, other people are more qualified to do 15 of the tasks that I'm doing. And I'm stuck doing all of the tasks for my business instead of being able to delegate and either outsource or get team members. And heck, if I had started doing that in 2011, 2012,
oh my gosh, we would be so much in a different place.
Different ball game, completely different.
We'd be multimillionaires for sure.
But that's where sometimes what you don't know can hurt you. If you're stuck staying in that plateau, and then after a while it's like, all right, I'm going to just force my way through. That's kind of my mentality up until a few years ago. I'd have to organically figure out what's the way to do it, and then I'd figure that out. So we kept hitting different plateaus. You were going to tell a story about inviting people over for dinner, and we didn't even have.
Well, that was just to make a point about when we were first married and so broke. I remember having some people over for dinner that had us over for dinner multiple times.
And they had a lavish spread.
Yeah, they would grill out steaks and chicken and all this stuff. And I remember we were going to have them for dinner. And
step up from ramen, basically.
You were like, well, we can't go grocery shopping. And I was like, what? You were like, yeah, we don't have anything.
Yeah.
And so I remember I had to look up like a beans recipe and literally made beans and rice to serve them. And they did not complain. They were great. But I remember feeling very self-conscious, like, here they have us over all the time and they serve us meat, and now they think we're being cheap and we won't even buy them meat. But it's not because we were being cheap. It's because we literally didn't have the money.
Yep. And that was the first, 2 or 3 years of our marriage. We definitely hit that point different times.
Yeah.
But then.
Okay. Clearly we are in some different clothes right now. If you're watching the YouTube video, that's because we got cut off. My laptop literally died mid podcast.
My ears also dropped too.
So we are back to finish the rest of this podcast episode. So let's pick up where we left off.
New hair, new outfits,
Little change.
Love it.
Yeah, love.
So I was just getting ready to ask you, baby, what would the version of you now want to ask or tell the version of you 10 years ago to be able to fast track and get through some of those things that you wanted to really dial in on?
Oh, I 100% would have gotten a coach or a mentor or just started working on growing as a person. Because if I had been growing as a person, number one, I would have felt more fulfilled and more satisfied in our marriage. And it would have started giving me like ideas of things that I could do. I remember at that time, I saw these other people starting to do blogs and be like the influencers. Yeah. This was like back in the day in 2010. And if I had been working on my own self and growing my confidence within myself, I would have started growing a platform. I would have started really taking my Instagram seriously. I would have started blogging seriously, and I would have stuck it out for the long haul, and who knows where I would be today. But it would have helped me get past my own limiting beliefs, my own lack of confidence, and it would have put me on a whole new path, because when you change, everything else changes for you. Yeah. And I was stuck in old thought patterns. I was stuck in old ways of doing things. And so if I wanted something different, then I needed to change.
Like, expound on that, if you would. Some of those old thought patterns, some of those limiting beliefs.
Like that you have to go get a job. Like, just go work a 9 to 5. Like, if you need income, if we needed extra income, it was like, well, go get a 9 to 5. But I didn't have a college degree. So I thought, well, then I just have to go get whatever job will take me. And I applied for super low paying jobs. It's like $10 an hour, $12 an hour, maybe $15 an hour. And back then,
Big leagues.
yeah, that was,
Oh
that was
boy.
big leagues. So instead of realizing I could create my own value, I didn't have to settle for what somebody else wanted to pay me. I could have created something of value that people would have paid me whatever price I thought it was worth.
And there's a phrase for that: trading dollars for hours and hours for dollars. And in essence, you're giving away your value to someone else or something else. And you're busy working on their baby, busy working on their dream versus building your own.
Totally.
So you would have started dreaming earlier, and you would have started actually working on fulfilling that.
Well, working on myself would have let me start dreaming.
Yeah.
I didn't even dream because I didn't know what to dream.
So you used this fascinating phrase when we were chatting about this before, and it was, you waited for permission.
Yes. Getting a coach would have helped me with that too. I was waiting for permission from other people to say, oh, here, you have a certificate. You can officially call yourself this, or you have a degree. You can say that you do this. I needed some sort of external validation to say that I could do or not do something, because I think it's just a thing about our society. We expect there's some sort of police walking around being like, show me your credentials. You can't call yourself that. Right? But in reality, there's not, right? We might have a few people say that to us, but when you think about it, it's their perspective versus yours. It doesn't make them the police either. Like, so I had that limiting belief for a really long time of, I can't actually call myself that. I can't actually let myself do that if I don't have this person or evidence.
And I remember when you were first blogging, maybe it was 2014, 2015, 5-6 years ago, it was funny because you actually, several other people in your circle started blogs about something. And then you said, oh, okay, I can do that too. It was almost like you had to wait for them to go first. The sheep has to jump over the rod, and then the rod's taken away. Well, all the rest of the sheep still jump, you know?
Totally.
And it was fascinating for me, you know, looking back on that. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but it's fascinating to see how we all are sheeple. In some aspects or another. We have to wait for permission. We have to wait for somebody else to go first.
I think we as a society tend to do that.
Mm-hmm. What would you tell someone who's on the fence about, you know, they're working that 9 to 5, they're working for that minimum wage and a couple bucks, you know, hourly job, but they've had some dreams and they're afraid to know, like, what do I do with that?
I would say you have no idea what's actually possible for you when you can grow and work on yourself. So start reading personal development, start working with a coach, get around people who are doing big things, because one, you need to expose yourself to what's actually possible. So that was big for me, was getting around people that were doing big things that had come from a similar place like me, where they were normal, right, in my mind, and they were doing these big things, and nobody gave them permission. They just kind of decided and did it. And that exposed me to thinking, oh my gosh, wow, like, why have I not thought like this before?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's actually possible for me, right? We tend to think celebrities or other people like that we see are somehow different because we don't know them. So get around people that you can get to know that are doing big things. I find these people in podcasts in their communities. I find them through books and their communities. You can find them at local places that are nice, like a country club, or you could find them at like a workout class, right? Things like that. But
a networking group on my end.
Yeah, networking group. Go find them and start being around people like that and see what wheels start to change in your mind. We become the average of the 5 people we hang out with.
Yeah.
So if you start hanging out with people like that, you will naturally start to rise.
It was fascinating for me, the transition that it was like a light switch flipped on for you in 2016 when you first started network marketing.
Yeah.
Because it was I found a tribe and they're all running. Yeah. We're not just sitting here, we're all going somewhere, we're all doing something. And that camaraderie, that network was almost more impactful for you than just the thing itself.
Correct. And I would say, I mean, I still recommend network marketing as a great place to start, because before I was doing the blogging thing and I didn't really know what I was doing, network marketing gave me the ability to make money right now off of something. And it gave me basically free business training because you join a team that's going to train you on how to do sales and how to run a back office and how to take care of customers. And it was like getting a degree in business because you need all of those things. You need a whole bunch of skills that I guarantee you don't have right now in order to build something else.
You said a triggering S word, the sales word.
I talk about sales all the time.
And that's something as part of the self-limiting beliefs. I think a lot of people have that conception about, oh, sales, you have to be overcoming objections, and they have this idea about what that is. But actually, I think it's really, our life is a sale, how we approach it, how we present ourselves. And you might just be able to be saying to yourself, I'm worth X number of dollars, or I am stuck in this spot, or I'm not going to make myself much. And that's actually a powerful sales process that you're selling yourself on and other people on, versus the opposite is what we love to see other people run for.
Well, you might have to overcome objections in the beginning when you're brand new to it.
Sure.
You're not going to be awesome at it right away, but you weren't awesome at anything that you do now when you first started. And so it's letting yourself be messy, giving yourself the grace to be messy when you start, and keep on showing up, knowing that the more you show up and the more you do it, the better you'll get.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh gosh, the me 10 years ago, 14 years ago, what would that guy need to know?
Yeah. What would you tell him?
First of all, the adage that it's really good to learn from your mistakes. It's even better to learn from other people's mistakes. And my favorite iteration of the saying is, and it's best to learn from other people's successes. I had to do a lot of trial and error. I had to just stumble through a lot, grin and bear it, work crazy hours, mortgage other aspects of my life. And that always comes with a cost. And so, yes, failure is part of the process, but you don't want to dwell there. Like, I know on my end, I spent a long time having this growing phase, and then I would plateau. And then I would grow, and I would plateau. And I kept hitting these plateaus in my life. And I think that's part of it. But sometimes you need, like we were saying a bit ago, personal development, a coach, working on yourself, being able to dive into what's beneath the hood, what's below the surface. Sometimes helps break through those plateaus. Failure is part of the process, but there's failure that takes you out of the game completely and you quit. Say, that's not for me. And there's failure that pushes you forward. And they actually feel very similar in the moment. But what you do with it is critical. So I would have told myself, make those failure windows shorter. Be able to have that coach, have the external pair of eyes that sees stuff. I think we all get stuck in the details. We're all working so close to the microscopic, do this, do this, do this, do this. And sometimes it takes an extra set of eyes, someone who actually isn't completely in the details to say, hey, have you thought about this, or what about that? And some of those what abouts, or have you considered, would have been hugely impactful for me and help break through some of those barriers long time before.
Well, it's interesting we both say coach, and I think that's just because we both know now, after years of experience, that the fastest way to increase your income is to grow. So the faster you can grow, the more money you can make, and the less time you'll spend making expensive mistakes. Because you're making really expensive mistakes right now that cost you in time and money and resources and a bunch of other things. But you're limiting your income too, because you're not growing as fast as you could. So a coach gives you to grow faster, make more, and miss a whole bunch of expensive mistakes.
And here's my favorite version of that.
Yeah.
So let's just say if you were working in your zone of genius, the handful of things that you can do world class, and you're there, and let's say your rate for that is $500 an hour, but you're hung up on paying a marketing or graphics design person $30 an hour to work for 2 hours and make a flyer for you. or some type of marketing thing. That's an example of, okay, I'm going to pay someone $60, $100, whatever it is, versus you're going to reinvent the wheel, slave over it, and spend 30 hours yourself doing it. That type of thing. I mean, I made those types of mistakes many times where I would agonize over something, and I would literally use the battering ram approach, where I'm going to try to force my way through. And if I could have actually gone back and recaptured some of those dollars that literally went out the door without me realizing it, that would have been a game changer for me. For sure. I also think a lot of times being single focused versus having focus spread all over the place. I know on my end, it's easy to say, oh my gosh, what's that person doing over there? We get the SOS, the shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
And so we look over the fence and we always wonder, hey, what are they doing? A world-class surgeon is going to make it. And first of all, like, it's not all about the money. Money is an indicator, but sometimes it's about lifestyle. It's about how happy you are, how fulfilled you are, and money comes right along with that.
Yeah.
But consider a world-class surgeon. They're going to make a considerable amount of money. If you have a world-class baseball player, they're exceptionally good at one thing, hitting a baseball or throwing a baseball. If you have a world-class chef, they're incredibly good at something specific. Yeah. But a lot of times, I think we hold ourselves back if we're over here trying to be a surgeon, and then we're over here trying to swing a baseball bat, and we hit ourselves, and then we go chop ourselves with a knife in the kitchen, because we're all running around trying to do all kinds of different things. I think mediocrity is comfortable, but being world-class, there's a certain amount of pain associated with that. Yeah. But once you get that point, once you're able to push through some of those barriers, it's exceptionally rewarding. Totally. I'd also say, like you touched on this a bit ago, but the average of the 5 people that are in your network, you become that average. I'd also follow up with that by saying, don't expect people to like you. Ooh. And if you're going to do some big things, if you're going to become world class, if you're really going to go somewhere, there's going to be those people that want to latch on and say, hey, wait a minute.
With you.
Or take me with you. Or I liked you better when you didn't have these great, big, crazy ideas. Yes. Whether that's family members, whether that's high school mates, whether that's whatever. You know, if you have 3-minute friends, 3-hour friends, 3-day friends, or perhaps even 3-year friends, it would be a disservice to yourself and them if you were spending days and days and days with someone who is a 3-minute or 3-hour friend. Yeah. And that's where I think a lot of times it's comfortable being nice, per se. Playing small. Yeah. And then you actually don't feel fulfilled. You feel stuck. You feel held back. And it's nothing against those folks. It's just they're running for something else. Yep. And a lot of times what's funny, they get the shiny object syndrome because months or years later, they see something big happening in your world and they're like, oh, what did you do with that? Fill me in. What was your magic secret? And that's actually the best thing that can possibly happen to the people in your world is you're going to go for something big and you really want to run for it. Don't sit on the sidelines. Go for it. They're not going to like you. You're probably going to get some boos and some catcalls from the stands. And really, you're quitting your job to get $12 for a month? Like, what is that? But when you actually start hitting some big goals and you start changing and they can see, oh my gosh, what happened to her? What happened to him? That's actually the best thing that can happen for them is they're going to come back around and ask you, what'd you do?
Well, maybe. They might not ever come back around, and that's okay too. Be willing to let people go out of your life and trust that more will come. Yeah. It's the saying that I just used the other day on a post, which is, what are you afraid of letting go for fear that nothing will come to take its place? Mm. We got to have open hands and trust that better comes when we let go.
Yeah. And I'd probably just end with, yes, failure is going to happen. You didn't learn to walk on the first try. It took a while. You did have to fall down. But I find that the failure that takes people out is oftentimes right before they're getting ready to have a big success. Yeah. like our analogy a few minutes ago about it takes a while to march all the way down the field, and then right before you score, you jog off the field or throw an interception or something. And so I know a lot of times in my life, some of those biggest successes happen when I wasn't even expecting them. I was just busy showing up, doing my thing, getting my day prepared, doing my workouts, doing, what I needed to do. And I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
And then I got the big phone call. Hey, I think we should have you in this meeting, or
Totally.
whatever. I got introduced to somebody that changed the course of my business.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we just don't know what that big, huge success is going to be. And we quit literally right before we're there.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I'd tell me, the 10 years ago version.
Is keep going.
Absolutely. Keep going, but you definitely need an outside set of eyes. You need to invest in a coach.
Yeah.
It's money very, very well spent. If you're going to spend a few hundred or a few $1,000s to get $100,000 or something, that's absolutely amazing. It's way better to invest in yourself than invest in the stock market.
100%.
As an entrepreneur, you can make 20x. You
Right.
have a certain amount of an asset, and you can explode that exponentially.
Yeah.
Versus I'm going to go and bet something that I don't know. So I'd also say, do what you know, and then be a little bit uncomfortable in that. That would be exciting for me. Go back and tell that guy that.
All right, you guys. So there you have it. A little bit about our story, how we got started becoming entrepreneurs, and our biggest lessons when we look back over the last 10 years. If you loved this episode, take a screenshot, share it out on your social media. We would love to hear from you. We would love to hear what your biggest takeaway was. And as always, you guys, thank you so much for listening into the show. We totally appreciate your time and we value you. We care about you guys. Let us know what you would like to hear about, how we can help you in your business. All right. Have a beautiful day.